This happened in 2014. At that time, Iftekhar had gone abroad to study at a university. He had recently been admitted to a university and was staying in a dorm. In the meantime, he had made a few new friends around him, and he was having a pretty good time with them. Iftekhar was a complete freshman at the time. The university orientation was over, and regular classes had started a couple of days earlier. The classes were not very demanding in the beginning. Overall, he was really enjoying his new life in a new place. One day, the class had already started. The professor was in the classroom and was talking to the students before beginning the lecture. Just then, a girl appeared at the door. She asked for permission to come in. Hearing her voice, many of the students looked toward her. Iftekhar looked too, and the moment he saw her, Iftekhar was surprised. The girl was incredibly beautiful. Even while she was standing at the door, Iftekhar's eyes were fixed on her. The professor gave her permission to come in. The girl walked in and took a seat. The seating arrangement was somewhat semicircular. Iftekhar was sitting on the right side, and the girl came and sat in an empty seat in front of him. Iftekhar was still looking at the girl. Seeing such a beautiful person sitting right in front of him, he was completely fascinated. The class was going on, but he couldn't really concentrate on the lecture. Most of the time, his eyes kept drifting toward the girl. The friend sitting beside Iftekhar also noticed it and teased him a little. After a while, the girl realized that Iftekhar was looking at her. At one point, she looked at him and gave him a slight smile. That made Iftekhar even more uncomfortable. Eventually, the class ended. Everyone started leaving the classroom. Iftekhar normally wasn't very comfortable talking to new people. Even after being at the university for a few days, he hadn't really become comfortable with everyone yet. But that day, he himself stepped forward to talk to the girl. They introduced themselves. The girl's name was Filpita. The girl then started walking away. Iftekhar followed behind her and asked if she was new because he hadn't seen her in class before. The girl told him that yes, it was her first day. Iftekhar asked where she lived. The girl simply said that she lived nearby. Iftekhar then asked if he could walk with her. The girl didn't mind. The two of them started walking side by side. The friend who had been sitting beside Iftekhar in class was watching the whole thing from a distance. He was quite surprised to see Iftekhar talking so comfortably with a girl on the very first day. As they walked, Iftekhar asked her a few simple things about her studies and where she lived. However, the girl was quite reserved. At one point, Iftekhar asked her if she wanted to sit in the canteen. She said that she was going home. When he asked how she would get there, she said she would take a bus. After that, the conversation didn't continue for much longer. Iftekhar said goodbye to the girl and turned back. Before leaving, he simply asked if he would see her again the next day. The girl smiled, agreed, and walked away. Iftekhar was returning from class that day with one of his classmates. His friend was quite surprised by the whole thing. It seemed unusual to him that Iftekhar had talked to such a beautiful girl on the very first day. Iftekhar didn't pay much attention to it. He really thought the girl was very beautiful. But after that day, the image of the girl seemed to remain stuck in his mind. After spending some time chatting with his friends, Iftekhar returned to the dorm. He was doing his usual things, but the thought of the girl kept coming back to him. He regretted not taking her phone number on the very first day. If he had taken it, perhaps he could have sent her a message or contacted her through social media. But he hadn't done anything. Thinking about all this, he had trouble falling asleep that night. Eventually, after falling asleep, he saw the girl in his dream as well. In the dream, he saw her sitting beside him, smiling and looking at him. The next day, even after going to class, Iftekhar remained restless. The girl still hadn't arrived. The professor had already started the class, but Iftekhar couldn't concentrate on anything. Whatever the professor was saying seemed to go in one ear and out the other. He was only thinking about when the girl would arrive. Almost halfway through the class, he finally saw the girl at the door. Iftekhar's face immediately lit up with happiness. The girl came in and took her usual seat. From a seat slightly behind her, Iftekhar looked at her and gave her a small smile. She looked back at him and smiled too. Then Iftekhar waited for the class to end. As soon as the class was over, he quickly went over to the girl. Remembering that he hadn't taken her phone number the previous day, He directly asked for it this time. The girl smiled a little and agreed. Iftekhar immediately took out his phone and saved her number. After that, the two of them started walking together. Iftekhar asked the girl if she wanted to have something at the canteen. She declined. Then Iftekhar suggested at least having a cold drink. The girl agreed, so Iftekhar quickly went to the canteen and brought 2 cold drinks. They drank them while walking together. After walking for a while, Iftekhar asked the girl how she was going home. She said she would take a bus. Then Iftekhar offered to drop her home on his motorcycle. The girl looked at him for a moment with a smile. She seemed a little surprised by how eager he was to help her. But eventually she agreed. Iftekhar had his own motorcycle. He had bought it for his convenience after coming abroad to study. So Iftekhar took the girl with him on his motorcycle and started riding toward her home. They first went through the city, but gradually they moved toward the outskirts. After going some distance, the surroundings began to change. There were more trees on both sides of the road, and the area started to look quiet and almost like a forest. Iftekhar was a little surprised and asked the girl if her home was in this direction. She explained that her home was a little outside the city, so she had to take this route. Iftekhar didn't say anything more and continued riding. After going a little farther, the girl asked him to stop near a narrow lane beside the road. The place made Iftekhar a little surprised. The narrow lane seemed to lead into an isolated area surrounded by trees. There were hardly any houses around. The girl told him that her home was in that direction. Iftekhar wanted to take her a little farther, but the girl said there was no need. She could go from there on her own. Eventually, Iftekhar let her get off there. The girl said goodbye and walked away along the narrow path toward her home. Iftekhar stood there for a moment, watching her disappear into the path, and then turned his motorcycle around and left. After returning to the dorm, he sent the girl a message. From there, they started communicating regularly. After that, they often met at the university. They talked during breaks, walked together sometimes, and also talked over the phone and through messages. Gradually, their friendship became stronger. Within a short time, they became very good friends. Then the summer vacation started at the university. Even though the classes were closed, they didn't stop communicating. In fact, they continued talking regularly through messages. At that point, their relationship was still only a friendship. But to Iftekhar, the girl was slowly becoming more and more important. After that, Iftekhar didn't really ask anything more about where Tripti lived. Sometimes he would still drop her off at the same place as before. In the meantime, their semester break arrived between the 2 semesters. Normally, Iftekhar was supposed to return home to Bangladesh during this break. But as soon as the vacation was about to begin, he started feeling very sad. He kept thinking that if he went back to Bangladesh, he wouldn't be able to see Tripti anymore. He would probably have to stay in touch with her only through social media. On the day the vacation started, Iftekhar met Tripti and told her that he was going back home and that they probably wouldn't see each other for quite some time. He also told her that he was going to miss her. Tripti was surprised and asked if he would really miss her. Iftekhar said, of course he would. Tripti was a very good friend of his. Then Iftekhar asked her in a slightly different way if he was only a friend to her. Tripti smiled and said that she didn't know. That day, Iftekhar walked with Tripti and dropped her off at the same place as usual. At the last moment, he really wanted to take her all the way to her home. But Tripti told him that it wasn't possible. He had to drop her off there. Before saying goodbye, Iftekhar told her that he wasn't actually going back to Bangladesh right away. If necessary, he would go later. Instead, he would come back even if it was just for a day to meet her and take her out. Tripti laughed at how determined he was. Eventually, she agreed and chose a day. She told him to come with his motorcycle that afternoon. Iftekhar was extremely happy and returned to the dorm. But because of the semester break, the dorm was also closing. So he talked to one of his friends and arranged to stay at his friend's place for a few days. Iftekhar told him that he would stay for only a week. His friends had no problem with it. He took his necessary belongings from the dorm for the week and moved into his friend's place. On the afternoon of the agreed day, Iftekhar. After a while, Tripti arrived there as well. She got on the motorcycle, and the two of them headed toward the city. After reaching the city, they sat at a coffee shop, had coffee, and talked for a long time. Then they noticed a small fair nearby. The two of them went inside the fair as well. They walked around, looked at different things, and played a few small games. By the time they were done, it had already become night. Iftekhar started worrying and asked Tripti if she would have any problem getting home so late. Tripti told him not to worry about it. She had already told her family that she was going out with a friend. Iftekhar was a little surprised. The area around Tripti's home was quite isolated and looked almost like a forest. So he found it a little strange that she wasn't afraid of going back there so late at night. Tripti simply said that there was nothing to be afraid of. Then Iftekhar suggested that they have dinner. Tripti said she wasn't hungry and didn't want to eat anything. Iftekhar didn't want to eat alone. Finally, Tripti said that if he really wanted to feed her something, he could buy her an apple. Iftekhar went and bought an apple. He got one for himself as well. They also bought some jalebi that was being prepared near the fair. The two of them ate the apples and jalebi. After that, they talked for a while and then returned to the motorcycle. That's when Iftekhar suddenly held Tripti's hand. Then he told her how he felt. He told her that he liked her and wanted something more than friendship between them. Tripti became a little uncomfortable after hearing this. Her expression also changed. After staying quiet for a moment, Tripti told him that it was better for them to remain friends. Nothing more than that was possible between them. Iftekhar became disappointed and asked what was wrong with him and whether there was something about him that made him impossible for her to like. Tripti explained that it wasn't like that. She did like Iftekhar, but she wanted to keep that liking within the boundaries of friendship. Tripti stayed quiet for a moment and said that it was better for them to remain friends. She couldn't explain anything more than that right now. Then she asked Iftekhar to drop her home. She told him that they could go out again another day, and after that, Iftekhar could return to his country. Iftekhar felt very upset. He had thought that Tripti would agree to what he had said. After the friendship they had developed over all these days, he had unknowingly started expecting something more. But he didn't say anything else. He took Tripti with him on the motorcycle and started riding back. After they had gone some distance, Tripti asked from behind, "Are you very upset?" Iftekhar simply nodded. It was obvious from his face that he was feeling very hurt. After a while, they reached the same place where Iftekhar usually dropped Tripti off. By then, it had already become completely dark. There were no signs of people anywhere on the road. The sound of crickets came continuously from the trees and forest around them. Sometimes the sound became so intense that the whole environment felt strangely unsettling. There was a moon in the sky, but it was giving off very little light. Only parts of the road were visible in the faint moonlight, while the rest was covered in darkness. For a moment, he thought about turning the motorcycle around and going back. But then he immediately thought that Tripti might get angry if he did that. By now, he had understood a little about her personality. He knew that Tripti was very independent and didn't like having things forced on her. So Iftekhar didn't turn back. He continued moving forward. After going some distance, he suddenly wondered if Tripti was still standing behind him. He looked once into the rearview mirror, but there was no one there. As far as he could see in the faint moonlight, the entire road behind him was empty. Iftekhar was surprised. He couldn't understand how Tripti had disappeared from that place so quickly. But he didn't have the courage to stop there anymore. The silence around him was becoming even more noticeable. There was only the sound of crickets, the rustling of leaves, and the engine of his motorcycle. There was no sign of any other person. Iftekhar increased the speed of the motorcycle. The road ahead had one turn after another. Every time he took a turn, he felt a strange pounding in his chest. His mood was already terrible, and now he had to travel alone through this huge, deserted, forest-like area. There were enormous trees on both sides of the road. Sometimes he could see their trunks in the motorcycle's headlight, and a few seconds later they would disappear back into the darkness. Iftekhar kept telling himself that he wasn't far from getting out of the area. Soon he would reach the city. Just then, he suddenly heard a strange, harsh sound from above his head. The sound was so sharp and unusual that Iftekhar was startled. At first, he thought it might be the call of some large bird. Then the sound came again. This time, it seemed to be coming from directly above him. Iftekhar slowly turned his head and looked up, and at that moment his heart seemed to freeze. Around 30 or 40 feet above his head, a gigantic bat was flying. Its wings were so large that they seemed to cover part of the dark sky. And the most frightening thing was its eyes. 2 red eyes were glowing in the darkness, like 2 small balls of fire. The bat was flying directly toward Iftekhar while making an extremely harsh sound. Terrified, Iftekhar increased the speed of his motorcycle. He could feel that the bat was getting closer and closer. At one point, it seemed as if it had almost reached the top of his head. Iftekhar didn't dare to look back. But when he glanced at the rearview mirror for a moment, he saw what looked like another strange shadow falling onto the bat. He couldn't clearly understand what it was. It seemed as if something resembling a black bird had landed on top of the bat. For a few moments, he could see violent movements of wings in the darkness. All the strength seemed to leave Iftekhar's body. Without thinking about anything else, he pushed the accelerator even harder. The motorcycle sped forward. After going some distance, near a bend in the road, something suddenly came rushing out from the bushes beside the road. It looked somewhat like a bird. It spread its wings and fluttered across the road. And immediately behind it, another black figure appeared and moved along with it before disappearing into the darkness beside the road. At that point, Iftekhar couldn't understand anything anymore. He had never seen anything like this in his life. The entire incident seemed completely abnormal and paranormal to him. He increased the speed of the motorcycle even more. Finally, somehow he crossed the deserted road and reached his friend's house. The house was also in a very quiet area. It was a single-story, townhouse-like house with not many other houses around. Iftekhar somehow parked the motorcycle and quickly knocked on the door. After a while, his friend opened the door. His friend's eyes were heavy with sleep. He had already gone to bed. Iftekhar had told him that he would be staying with him for a few days, so his friend had arranged a small room beside the living room for him. There was a single bed there. His friend, still half asleep, simply said, "I'm going to sleep. You do whatever you want." Then he went into his own room and closed the door. Iftekhar stood there for a while. His body was still trembling. The entire house was silent. There was no sound of anyone outside. In the middle of the darkness and isolation, the atmosphere of the house also felt strangely unsettling to him. The events he had just witnessed kept replaying in his mind. And for the first time, Iftekhar began to wonder, what exactly had he seen that night? There was no one around. Iftekhar sat there quietly for a while. After sitting like that for some time, he slowly came back to reality. He was still feeling terrible. He had been extremely frightened by everything he had seen on his way back, and he was also upset about what had happened between him and Tripti. Anyway, Iftekhar went and freshened up. He wasn't hungry anymore. He had eaten jalebi and an apple earlier, so his mouth still had that sweet taste. He quietly changed his clothes and lay down on the bed. Lying there, he thought that it was better to just go to sleep. What else could he do? He didn't even pick up his mobile phone. After a while, Iftekhar fell asleep. He had been asleep for quite some time when suddenly he felt that there was a very familiar perfume fragrance inside his room. The smell was extremely familiar to him. It was the perfume Tripti used. Iftekhar had wanted to ask Tripti several times what perfume she used, but he had never actually asked her. The fragrance was strangely sweet, almost like a mixture of cardamom and rose. Slowly, that fragrance seemed to fill the entire room. Iftekhar's sleep was not very deep. Suddenly, he woke up. He shook his head and looked around. Where was that fragrance coming from? Then, all of a sudden, he looked toward the corner of the sofa in his room. Someone was sitting there. In the darkness and dim light, he could only see what looked like a figure. Iftekhar's heart suddenly jumped. He couldn't see clearly. A small amount of light was coming through the gap in the window, and in that faint light, he could only make out that someone was sitting on the sofa. After a while, a voice came from that side. "Iftekhar, you're awake?" The moment he heard the voice, Iftekhar became extremely frightened, because it was Tripti's voice. Slowly, Iftekhar said, "Tripti? How are you here?" The figure sitting on the sofa slowly stood up. Then it came over and sat beside Iftekhar's bed. Now Iftekhar understood that it was Tripti. In the darkness, her figure, her voice, and that familiar perfume fragrance left no doubt in his mind. Tripti slowly said, "Listen, Iftekhar, you are a very good friend of mine, but there is a problem. Nothing more than friendship can ever happen between you and me. You are misunderstanding things. You have misunderstood me, but try to understand." Iftekhar remained silent and kept looking at her. Tripti continued, "There is something I kept hidden from you, but now I have to reveal it to you." After a short pause, she said, "When you were dropping me off tonight, someone attacked you. You realized that, didn't you?" Iftekhar was shocked. "Attacked me? I thought it was a huge bat coming from above." Tripti said, "Yes, it was someone from our clan." The moment Iftekhar heard that, the hair all over his body stood on end. He said in disbelief, "What are you saying? What do you mean? You're not human." Tripti calmly replied, "No, I'm not human. I'm not human like you. We are another kind of species. We live around you. We blend in among you. We study among you, we live among you, and we do everything among you. But you people cannot understand us." Iftekhar remained speechless, staring at her. Tripti continued, "That is why a relationship between you and me is not possible." Then she said, "The ones who attacked you tonight realized that something had developed between you and me. They understood that I had become weak toward you, or that you had become weak toward me. And that is why they attacked you." Iftekhar couldn't say anything. Tripti slowly continued, "Most probably, I'm going to leave after telling you all of this. But from today onward, my family will keep me confined. I won't be able to come and meet you anymore." There was a strange sadness in her voice now. She said, "I don't even know whether I'll be able to come to class again." After remaining silent for a moment, Tripti said one last thing. "Please don't try to contact me anymore. From now on, if you try to stay in contact with me, you will be the one who gets into trouble. They might hurt you too. So please don't try to create any problems." Tripti slowly said, "And there is one more thing I want to tell you. If they keep me confined, they will use something to restrain me in such a way that it will be impossible for me to get out. We have separate guards there. There are also different kinds of arrangements for the women. They are restrained in such a way that they cannot break or remove it themselves and escape from there." After a brief pause, Tripti said, "Tonight, I protected you. If I hadn't been there, they would have hurt you." To Iftekhar, the whole thing sounded like something out of a fairy tale. He said in disbelief, "What are you talking about? How did you get in here?" The door was closed. Tripti calmly replied, "Isn't it strange to you that I was able to get in here?" Iftekhar couldn't answer. Tripti said, "Since I was..." After saying this, Iftekhar simply kept staring at Tripti. After a while, he saw Tripti's figure slowly stand up. Now, in the dim light, Iftekhar could see her a little more clearly. He could make out her hair, the shape of her body, and her height. That familiar perfume fragrance was still lingering inside the room. Tripti slowly started walking toward the door. When she reached the door, she suddenly turned around and looked at Iftekhar once. And at that moment, Iftekhar's entire body went cold. Tripti's eyes suddenly lit up. For a moment, it looked as if two red lights had flashed in the darkness. Then Iftekhar couldn't see anything anymore. Tripti seemed to disappear into the darkness. Iftekhar became extremely frightened. He sat pressed tightly against the bed. His chest felt like it was pounding from inside. Because there was one thing he could no longer deny. He had truly fallen deeply in love with Tripti. But who exactly was Tripti? How had she entered his room so easily? And what exactly had he seen in her eyes? None of it made sense to Iftekhar. He somehow managed to get through that night. Even during the daytime the next day, he looked completely absent-minded. The friend whose house he was staying at looked at him and asked, "What happened to you? Why do you look so upset? Is there some problem? You went to meet Tripti, right? Did she reject you?" Iftekhar said, "Don't talk about those things anymore. I'm going back to my country." His friend was a local from that country. He didn't say much more and simply said, "Fine, forget about all that." After his friend went outside, Iftekhar was alone again. Sitting alone in the house, he became even more upset. He kept thinking about everything that had happened the previous night. Tripti's words kept going around in his head. Was she really not human? But all this time, Iftekhar had always seen her as an ordinary human being. He had attended classes with her, talked to her, and become friends with her. So how could all of this be possible? Eventually, thinking about everything made Iftekhar restless, and his old reckless nature started rising again. Even back in his country, he had always been somewhat reckless. Among his friends, he was the one who liked taking more risks than others. Even when riding his motorcycle, he often rode in a risky way. That evening, after sunset, that side of his personality completely returned. His friend wasn't home either. Iftekhar thought that he would go back to that place. He would look for Tripti. He would call out to her. He needed to know what was actually happening. The whole thing seemed so strange to him that he simply couldn't accept it. He kept thinking, how is this possible? I've always seen Tripti as a human being. Eventually, he couldn't stop himself anymore. He decided to go back to the forested area where he had dropped Tripti off. As he was leaving, he suddenly noticed one of his friend's knives. Thinking about his own safety, he took the knife with him. Then he got on his motorcycle and started the engine. He rode toward that same place again. By then, evening had already passed. When Iftekhar slowly began entering the forested area, it was almost completely dark. Only the light from his motorcycle's headlight fell onto the road. Huge trees stood on both sides. After darkness had fallen, the area looked even more frightening. But that night, Iftekhar wasn't thinking about fear. He was so desperate that nothing else seemed important to him anymore. He kept thinking about Tripti. He simply wanted to know what was actually happening. While riding along the road, 2 trucks passed him at one point. After that, everything became silent again. The entire road was empty. After traveling some distance, Iftekhar finally reached the same place where he had dropped Tripti off the previous night. He stopped the motorcycle. He looked around. It was already very late at night. There was only the sound of crickets and the darkness of the forest surrounding him. There was no sign of any people. Iftekhar stood there for a while. He was wondering, if Tripti really lived here, then where was her house? The previous night, Tripti had told him that their home was somewhere in this area. But standing beside the road, he couldn't see any houses at all. After thinking for a long time, Iftekhar moved the motorcycle to the side of the road and left it there. This was the first time he had decided to enter the place Tripti had pointed out to him. Leaving the motorcycle beside the road, he stared into the darkness. Then, slowly, he stepped forward into the unfamiliar place. The road he was riding his motorcycle on was kind of like a dirt road. There was no proper road there. The motorcycle kept going up and down over the uneven ground, and the shocks were constantly taking the impact. As he went deeper into the area, riding over the uneven road, he entered a place surrounded by trees and vegetation. Huge trees stood on both sides, with the narrow dirt road running through the middle. He started wondering, how could anyone possibly have a house here? By then, it had become completely dark. The motorcycle's headlight was shining directly onto the dirt road. Whenever he slightly turned his head, he could see the huge trees and dense vegetation on both sides. Then he noticed something. On his way there earlier, he had seen a house somewhere around this area. Now, when his headlight fell toward that house, there wasn't a single light on. It seemed like nobody lived there at night. Anyway, he kept riding deeper into the area. The road continued ahead, surrounded by trees and more trees. There were no houses, nothing. He kept moving forward, but there was still nothing except the forest. Then, at one point, he noticed that the trees had become slightly less dense. The road seemed to merge into an open area. It looked almost like a circular clearing. He stopped his motorcycle there. He turned off the engine and switched off the headlight. Suddenly, everything became completely silent. There was only a faint amount of moonlight coming down from the sky. It wasn't a full moon, but there was enough light to make the area slightly visible. Iftekhar stood there and thought, "Where have I come?" Tripti had told him that her house was somewhere around here. But everything was starting to feel different now. He couldn't make sense of anything. Then he remembered the knife. He took it firmly in his hand and slowly walked out toward the open area. He walked a little farther. And then he saw it. A huge snake. It looked like a giant king cobra. In fact, judging by its size, it could hardly be anything else. The snake was enormous. Its body was extremely thick, and the diameter of its body looked more than half a foot. It was huge. Its hood was raised nearly 2 to 2.5 feet above the ground. The massive hood was spread wide, and it was coming toward him, making a strange hissing sound. Under the moonlight, the snake's body was shining. Its eyes looked as if they were moving directly toward him. Iftekhar felt like his soul had left his body. At that moment, there was nothing left to think about. The snake was coming straight toward him, hissing violently. It stopped only about 2 or 2.5 feet away from him. Then it started making a deep growling sound. Iftekhar was stunned. How could a snake growl like that? A terrifying sound was coming from the snake's throat. It was the kind of sound that could make any person freeze with fear. Iftekhar was terrified too, but at the same time, desperation had taken over him. He quickly pulled out the knife with his right hand. The snake suddenly lunged forward and tried to bite him. But Iftekhar was physically fit. He had also learned martial arts back when he lived in his country. With his left hand, he grabbed the snake firmly around the neck. Then, with his other hand, he moved the knife extremely fast. He struck directly at its neck. Everything happened so quickly that even Iftekhar himself couldn't understand how he managed to do it. Perhaps it was pure luck. He completely severed the snake's head. He threw the head away, and the snake's body collapsed beside him. Blood splattered everywhere. Iftekhar immediately jumped backward. Then he heard something, a strange hissing sound. At first, it seemed to be coming from the trees around him. Then it became louder. It felt as if the entire forest had suddenly started making that sound. Iftekhar became extremely frightened. He thought, what is going to happen now? It sounded as if countless snakes were moving around him, as if hundreds of snakes were about to come crawling out of the forest. And then he saw something. From inside the trees ahead, something resembling a black spiral of smoke suddenly appeared. It moved rapidly toward him. It looked almost like a dark, swirling ball. Before he could understand what it was, it came straight at him and struck his body. The moment it touched him, his entire body became extremely hot. It felt as if he suddenly had a very high fever. His whole body was burning. He could barely move. Somehow, in that condition, Iftekhar managed to walk back toward his motorcycle. He started the motorcycle and brought it back onto the road. After that, he remembered nothing. Then, suddenly, he regained consciousness. He realized that he was riding along the road, and someone was sitting behind him on the motorcycle. It was Tripti. She was sitting behind him and urgently telling him, "You have to leave right now." She continued, "Leave this place immediately. There is a ferry here. Take the night ferry, cross the river, and go to the other side. Don't stay here. You shouldn't have come here. Why did you come here?" Tripti had become extremely emotional. She was crying as she spoke. "Please leave. Please don't stay here. Go right now. I'll take you there. I'll take you all the way to the ferry terminal. Cross the river and go to the other side. Don't stay here. Definitely don't stay here. If you stay here, something terrible will happen to you." Iftekhar tried to say many things, but he couldn't find the words. He couldn't properly speak. He simply kept riding. Eventually, they reached the ferry area. There was no ferry there at that moment. There were only a few boats waiting by the river. Iftekhar stopped there. He got off the motorcycle and stood there, wondering what he should do. He looked at Tripti. She was standing there normally, just as she always did. But she was crying. She kept telling him, "You have to leave. You can't come back here anymore. If I leave, you'll be in serious trouble. Please, just go from here. You will meet me again. Cross the river and go to the other side. I don't know how you'll manage your belongings or everything else. But after that, go back to your country. Don't come back here anymore. If you stay here now, something terrible will happen to you. You have already made a very big mistake by coming here." Iftekhar tried to say many things. He wanted to ask her questions. He wanted to know what was happening. But he simply couldn't speak. He had no words. Finally, he said goodbye to Tripti. Then he got onto one of the boats. The boat slowly moved across the river. He reached the other side. After reaching the other side, Iftekhar immediately contacted his friend. He contacted his friend over the phone. He told him, "I'm in serious trouble. I need to leave this place. I have to go back to my country now. I can't stay here anymore." His friend asked, "What happened?" Iftekhar replied, "If I tell you everything, you won't understand. Just come here and bring my documents to me. Bring my papers and whatever other small things I have there. I probably won't be able to take everything with me." His friend said, "Okay, fine. I'll see what I can do." By then, it had become very late at night. His friend somehow arranged a car and came to meet him. He brought Iftekhar's documents and belongings to the other side of the river. His friend also rented a hotel room for him there. That night, his friend stayed with him at the hotel. He kept asking, "What happened?" But Iftekhar couldn't really explain anything. Finally, Iftekhar said, "You don't want to hear all this. Even if I tell you what happened, you won't understand, and you probably won't believe me either. Please just take it easy. Don't ask me about these things tonight." After spending some time together, Iftekhar said goodbye to his friend. He thanked him and then handed him the key to his motorcycle. "Here, I'm giving you my motorcycle. Consider it a gift. You can use it or sell it. It's completely up to you." The next day, Iftekhar made arrangements to return to his country. And eventually, he went back home. After returning home, Iftekhar was mentally devastated. He couldn't think properly anymore. Nothing seemed to work normally inside his head. His parents were shocked. They couldn't understand why their son had come home during the semester break and then simply wasn't going back. Days passed, but Iftekhar still didn't return. Gradually, his hair and beard started growing out. He became mentally extremely unstable. He wouldn't listen to anyone. He would get angry over the smallest things at home. His condition was getting worse. One evening, after sunset, Iftekhar went up to the roof of their house. His family lived in Mirpur. There were quite a few trees around their house, making the area feel somewhat enclosed. Iftekhar went to one corner of the rooftop and sat down. He was thinking about everything and was about to light a cigarette. And then suddenly, he smelled something, a very familiar fragrance. It was that perfume, the same perfume he had smelled on Tripti. The moment Iftekhar recognized the scent, his mind went completely blank. He started looking around. He didn't know what was happening. After a while, he suddenly saw someone slowly walking out from around the corner of the rooftop. It was Tripti. In the darkness and dim light, Iftekhar could clearly see her standing there. He was completely stunned. He couldn't move. Tripti slowly walked toward him. Then she said, "I told you that we would meet again. I came back. From now on, I'll stay with you. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere." Iftekhar stared at her in disbelief. "How is this possible? How did you come here?" Tripti calmly replied, "Don't worry. Nobody can see me right now. Take me inside your house. I know how to stay there." Iftekhar was completely changed that day. He didn't question her anymore. He took Tripti into the house. And strangely enough, Tripti entered the house with him and went directly to his room. Nobody saw her. Nobody noticed anything. From that day onward, Tripti started living inside Iftekhar's house. She stayed in his room, but Iftekhar himself didn't know where she went when she disappeared or where she stayed during those times. No one else ever seemed to see her. Sometimes she was there with him. Other times she was simply gone. When it came to food, Tripti didn't eat the regular fish, meat, and other foods that Iftekhar's family ate. She seemed to eat fruits and other things on her own. Even Iftekhar couldn't properly explain what she actually ate or how she survived there. Anyway, Tripti continued staying with him. And strangely, Iftekhar himself started changing. The condition of his appearance, which had become neglected during his mental breakdown, gradually started getting better. He began looking more normal again. Around this time, one of Iftekhar's maternal uncles came to visit their house. He was a Pir Sahib, a religious spiritual figure. The moment he entered the house, he suddenly became extremely serious. He looked around and then told Iftekhar's mother, "There is a problem in your house. There is a peri here." Iftekhar's mother was completely stunned. "A peri? Yes, there is something here." His uncle immediately began performing his own spiritual practices and started moving around the house. At that time, Iftekhar was sitting inside his room and talking with Tripti. Suddenly, he noticed that Tripti sat upright. She started breathing heavily. She looked extremely restless. Then she said, "Hide me," Iftekhar asked. "Why?" Tripti replied, "You can hide me, can't you?" "No, I can't hide right now. Something is happening. Someone has come to your house. He is causing problems for me. He is doing something that is preventing me from hiding properly." Iftekhar suddenly became extremely angry. He immediately left the room and went into the dining area. He said, "What is going on here? What are you doing in the house?" His mother looked at him in confusion. "What are you talking about? What happened to you?" Iftekhar angrily replied, "What are you doing here? Why are you doing all these rituals and things inside our house? You can't do these things here." His uncle looked at him. "Who told you that I was doing anything?" Iftekhar suddenly became confused. His uncle continued, "How do you know what I'm doing? How did you know I was doing something here?" Iftekhar couldn't answer. The situation quickly became heated. His uncle became angry. His mother became angry too. And Iftekhar also started arguing with them. The tension inside the house suddenly became intense. His uncle continued performing his rituals while reciting prayers, and eventually entered Iftekhar's room. The moment he entered the room, suddenly one of the glass windows in Iftekhar's room shattered. There was a loud crashing sound. The glass broke with a huge noise and fell to the floor, scattering everywhere. Iftekhar's mother immediately ran toward the room. Iftekhar also rushed there with his uncle. But when they entered the room, there was no one there. His uncle then said, "I am going to seal this room now. There is a problem inside this room. There is a peri here." Iftekhar became furious. Nonsense. He didn't want to listen to any of it. But his uncle looked at him seriously and said, "There is something affecting you too. You are under its influence. We have to get rid of it. I need to treat you as well." By then, Iftekhar's father had also arrived. The situation inside the house became extremely tense. His uncle had already started the process of sealing the room. Iftekhar's father was a very strict man. He stopped Iftekhar and said, "Stop this nonsense. Don't go anywhere. What kind of foolishness are you doing now? Just a few days ago you were acting like a completely different person, and now you're starting all this again?" The situation became chaotic. Iftekhar was furious, while his uncle continued sealing the room. After finishing the process, his uncle said, "I'll stay here tonight. I'll stay at your house and keep watch." That night, Iftekhar's father kept him inside another room. Later that night, strange sounds started coming from around the house. It sounded like someone was crying. A woman's crying. It was a soft, painful, sobbing sound coming from somewhere outside. The sound was so strange and disturbing that even the house workers became frightened. It sounded like someone was crying in extreme pain. Iftekhar couldn't bear it anymore. He repeatedly begged his mother and father, "Please let me out. I'll tell you everything." Eventually, Iftekhar told his mother everything that had happened. He explained everything from the beginning. His mother listened in shock. But after hearing everything, she simply said, "No, this is impossible." Then she spoke with Iftekhar's uncle. His uncle said, "Then I'll talk to him myself." He went into Iftekhar's room. His uncle began speaking with him. Most of the conversation was one-sided. Iftekhar could mainly hear his uncle's voice, while the other side was difficult to hear. But from what he could understand, His uncle was trying to explain something to Tripti. He was saying, "Look, you and he cannot be together. You need to leave from wherever you came from. He is a human being, and you are a Djinn. There is a huge difference between your lifespans. This boy won't live forever. After some time, he will leave this world. His lifespan is limited. Maybe he has 40, 50, or 60 years at most. After that, his life will end. But you will continue to exist for a very long time. So what will happen then? You will be left alone. You will suffer because of him. How can a human and a Djinn live together? How can I possibly bring the two of you together? It isn't possible. It simply cannot happen." His uncle then recited several more prayers. He continued performing his rituals for some time. Eventually, everything became quiet. After a while, his uncle came out and said, "She is gone." When Iftekhar heard this, he completely broke down. He started crying and screaming. The entire house became filled with grief. After that, Iftekhar remained deeply depressed for a long time. Eventually, he decided to continue his studies in Europe. He started the application and visa process. After some time, his visa was approved. He left for Europe. He went to a European country, but he has chosen not to disclose which country it was. When he first arrived in Europe, he was still deeply depressed. He stayed in a small studio. It was almost like a little cottage, located somewhere close to nature. The place was quiet and isolated. He didn't feel good there. Almost every day, he would leave his accommodation and walk around. There was a lake nearby. He would often sit beside the lake for hours. One night, while he was lying there feeling extremely depressed, something happened. He suddenly smelled that fragrance again. The same perfume, that familiar scent. The moment Iftekhar recognized it, he became almost crazy with shock. He immediately got up. He looked around, and then he saw her. Tripti was sitting outside his small accommodation. Iftekhar was completely stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. He went to her and held her hand. "How did you come here?" Tripti replied, "I came for you. I came here however I could. Your uncle forced me to leave before. After that, I couldn't stay there anymore. I left everything behind. They don't allow me to stay there anymore. So I came to you. I came here however I could." Iftekhar looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "Okay, you and I will stay together. We'll get married. But there is one condition. You can never reveal to anyone that you aren't human. Don't ever do anything that makes people realize that you're not human. And even with me, don't show me anything that makes me feel that you're not human. I want to see you as a normal human being." From that day onward, Tripti stayed with him in exactly that way. They eventually got married. Iftekhar has not disclosed anything more about their life together. But according to him, Tripti lives with him just like a completely normal human being. She wants to live and eventually leave this world in the same way Iftekhar will. She doesn't want to live forever. And after that, Tripti never did anything that would shock Iftekhar or make him question what she really was. She behaves exactly like an ordinary human being. She lives like a normal person. Nobody around them can understand whether she is actually human or something else. But according to Iftekhar, Tripti lives with him just like a normal human being. Iftekhar has also used a pseudonym for himself in telling this story. Tripti is also a pseudonym, and he has chosen not to disclose where they currently live. Anyway, this is one of the incidents from his life.